welcome to another episode of Aligned Heart. This is Misty Springer, and I am here with my special guest, Sheridan. And this is another episode that I get to interview an ordinary woman doing extraordinary things. And I have met Sheridan and am just fascinated by what she does and the gifts that she has to share and how she has brought those gifts out into the world and is serving in a really unique and special way. And I was thrilled when she agreed to come on the podcast and share her story because, like many of you and all of my listeners, you are doing amazing, extraordinary things, but you're doing them one ordinary step at a time. And I love to bring women onto the podcast who are doing just that, who don't feel extraordinary, but as they're taking one ordinary step forward, one little step at a time, they're accomplishing extraordinary things. But they're doing that in a very unique way. They're tapping into their heart, they're tapping into the gifts that they have, they're tapping into the truth of who they are. And that's pulling them forward despite the obstacles and the fears and the doubts and the what ifs and all of the noise that gets in the way. So I'm thrilled to have Sheridan here. I'm going to have her introduce herself and what she does, and then we'll just dive into her story. So welcome, Sheridan.
Thank you so much for having me, Misty. This is so great. I am Sheridan, and I have been working with people in many different capacities for many years. I started as a childbirth educator, teaching hypnosis for childbirth. I was a birth doula, and I did that for probably 10 years. And then I shifted into life coaching and energy work and kind of combining those two things together. And I've done that for 15 plus years. And recently, this year, my focus has shifted to really focusing on non-speaking autistic kids and their parents and supporting them. And I actually have been supporting quite a few clients like that for many years, but recently just really was called to focus on that population. So
Yeah. And what do you do with them? Tell us a little bit about how you support them.
yeah. So for years, I supported them by doing energy work for the autistic non-speaking children and often for their parents as well. But with the parents, I'd like be on a call with a mom, say, and I'd be coaching her and doing energy work for her. And then their child would be having a certain struggle. So I'd also do energy work for their child and then kind of like wrap it up. How can you support your child? And, you know, that was my focus for many years. But this year, the beginning of 2025, one of the dads that I work with sent me a text and he's like, have you heard of the telepathy tapes? And you need to listen to that. I'm like, okay. And that's what really shifted what I do now. It has totally changed. I still do life coaching and energy work with these families, but now I also do what I call spirit to spirit sessions. So let me explain a little bit about the telepathy tapes in case your listeners are not familiar with that. But it is a podcast that is hosted by Kai Dickens, and she goes about interviewing families who have non-speakers, and they have found, and she's videotaped like these experiments proving that these non-speakers, some of them have telepathic powers. They're able to read their parents' minds, or their teachers are able to communicate this way. And so when I first heard this, um, it didn't surprise me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. But what was fascinating to me was they talk a lot of these non-speakers that are completely different places in the world. Oh, and I have to explain how they're communicating, right? Because we call them non-speakers, but some of these children who do not speak with their mouth have learned to communicate via spelling, which is using a, how shall we say it, like a stencil with letters, and they'll point at different letters and spell. Some of them are actually able to type on a keyboard. There's a whole movie called the Spellers movie that you can watch for free on YouTube, which demonstrates how this works. So these spellers who are non-speaking with their mouth are able to communicate that way, right? So this is how they've come to learn that they're able to do this. Well, different non-speakers from different places in the country and actually the world have talked about going to this location they call the hill, where they're able to communicate with each other, the non-speakers on this different realm, I guess you could say, right? On the hill, they call it. And anyway, that kind of blew my mind in a lot of different ways. But I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. And I have worked with 3 specific non-speakers and their families for many years, for 8+ years. And they were curious if this was real. And I'm like, I don't know if it's real. Like, that sounds fascinating. And from what I heard on the telepathy tapes, I was like, this could totally be real. And I was praying about it. And I was asking God, I'm like, could this be real? Like, could I go to the hill? Could I try and talk to my clients? So I'll give you one specific, there's 2 specific kids that I'll talk about who have their parents have been on my podcast called Awesome Autism Tools. So I know they're fine with me sharing. So one is named Sterling, and his parents sometimes would, when his birthday would come up, they'd be like, can you see what Sterling wants for his birthday? So I do a little energy session and he could give me like an image. Like one year he wanted tennis shoes. Another year he wanted a white kitten with short hair, so I could get answers that way. So then I was like, could I just talk to him on the hill? I don't know, but I thought I'll give it a try. And I prayed about it first. I was like, I don't know. That sounds crazy. But I'm like, let me just see. And God's like, sure, you can try. I'm like, okay. So it was funny because I got myself into a meditative state. I do meditate daily. That's a normal thing that I've is part of my routine. So I knew how to get into that state. And I asked to go to the hill. And I thought I'd see Sterling there or visit with Sterling there. But instead, Jay was there. So Jay is actually the first non-speaker I ever met in person many years ago. He was 12 at the time. And I knew him, like I knew his energy. I knew it was him because, again, I've worked with him for 11 years or more. And I was like, Jay, it's you. And he talked to me. I heard him in my head and he talked to me. And I was trying to write frantically down what he was saying. And then I was able to also talk to Sterling and I wrote down what he said. And then I texted both sets of parents. I'm like, okay, guess what just happened? And they were like amazed and thrilled and so happy to be able to hear these messages from their child. One of the boys, Sterling is not an open speller right now. So they are not able to communicate with him that way. Jay can spell, but he's not he is open, but not with his mom. It's a whole language, the speller's language. But so she is able to get messages from him via spelling, but it was sweet to hear his message. So that's what got me that's a short version, but I was like, okay, wow, that happened. And I told the parents and they were so excited. And then I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, okay, that was really amazing, but also surprising. And then I didn't know, like, what do I do with this? And the parents were so excited. And they're like, you just need to work with non-speakers. We need so much help, their families. And so I had to ponder that and really took me a few months to decide if I wanted to really focus on that demographic. And with a lot of prayer and fasting and all these things. And God was like, yeah, do that. Focus on this group. And then I was like, well, what do I do with the spirit to spirit thing? Like, that's weird, because it sounds weird. And I called up Jay's mom, Emma, and she's like, don't you remember what happened the day that you met Jay? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? But she had the text message thread of what had happened. And as she said it, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember. And I pulled out my journal and I knew exactly what date to go to because she had the texts. Well, the day that I met Jay, he came right up to me and looked me in the eyes. And like, I could feel him trying to communicate with me. And I like chuckled, like I could feel him. And then he like kind of snuggled with me. And his mom, Emma, was like shocked because he did not do that with anybody. And she's like, hey, this is really interesting. And we spent like an hour or two together. I don't remember. We were at a friend's house and and then they went home. Well, that night when I prayed, I felt Jay come to me and he said, I have a message for my mom. And I'm like going, what is happening? What's going on? Because that had never happened to me before, right? I'm like, and I was really uncertain. So I'm just like, you know what, Jay, let me just reach out to your mom and I'll do an energy session and see if I can get that information to her, because I wasn't going to just talk to this 12-year-old, even though it was that way. I just knew I needed to talk to his mom. So then I had to text this lady I just met that day and be like, hey, your son has a message he wants to share with you. Can we set up a session so I can like get that for you? And she was like kind of confused, but also because of the way that Jay had interacted with me, she knew there was something unusual there or something, a connection. And so we set up a session and, things have grown since then. But I never, since then, until I tried going to the hill, had like just talked with Jay. I'd always just worked with him with energy sessions because that's how I knew how to do things. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so you have all these amazing experiences and you're trying to put them into a context, trying to understand them, trying to make sense of them, trying to be like, okay, what am I supposed like I have this information, I'm having these amazing, incredible, like kind of out there experiences, and now what do I do with them? So how did you take this, like really this feeling on your heart? And that's many of my listeners are just women who feel a call in their heart. And that can be something that feels impossible or extraordinary in whatever realm that is. It can be creating a business for the first time, or it can be changing a relationship for the first time. There's so many things that we feel called to do in our hearts, but don't feel qualified or, how do I do this? What were some of the things that you had to overcome and what kept you moving forward, even with the doubts and the fears and all of the noise in your head?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that definitely God was propelling me forward. He'd give me these little glimpses of things and answers to prayers in so many ways that, well, a very specific instance, people started. So I started my Awesome Autism Tools podcast and really started, it's really for any family with a child on the autism spectrum, but a lot of my episodes are geared towards non-speakers. And so people started reaching out, and I wasn't at the place where I'd offer like a spirit to spirit session to somebody I hadn't worked on yet. I did a few with like clients I already had, but I wasn't just being like, here's something I do. Well, this one, again, I've done a podcast with Teal, so I can talk about this, but Teal reached out to me and she's like, I want to do a session with you. I'm like, okay. So we did just a normal energy session for her, and she has a non-speaking son. And, I thought it was good. And, it just ended. And she wasn't like, oh, let's work together again. But I was like, okay. Well, within a week, I was like, God pressed upon my heart, you need to offer spirit to spirit sessions. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think so. No. But he's like, no. And so I had started a newsletter. I had 19 people on my newsletter for Awesome Autism Tools. And I crafted a newsletter, doing that offer. And then I'm like, I'm going to go. I have a special spiritual place I like to go, my church, the temple. And I was like, I'm going to go there and I'm going to pray and like really ask God. I mean, I had been the whole time, but I'm like, I'm going there and I'm making sure before I press send on this. So I drove to the temple and like I asked God, like, do you want me to do spirit to spirit sessions? And he's like, yes. Like, I've already told you that. And I'm like, are you sure? I was like kind of debating with him a little bit. And he said, he's like, there are children out there waiting to give their parents messages, and you're able to do that. You need to do that. And he reminded me of a time I had gone to the hill with these other kids that I've worked with so much. And I saw 1,000 children standing on the beach. 1,000, like just on a beach. And they're like, are you ready? And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm not even sure what you're asking me. I'm ready for, but I don't know, you know? But I finally got to the point where I was like, yes, I'm ready. I can do this. And God reminded me when I was there, the temple, he's like, do you remember the 1,000 kids on the beach asking if you were ready? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're ready. Just offer it. And I'm like, okay. And I drove home and I clicked send. Within a day, Teal had signed up for a spirit to spirit session for her son, Sammy. And it was later, after I had done the session, um, she shared her experience where she had been prompted by God to find an energy worker that could do spirit to spirit sessions. And when she found me, she's like, this could be her. But I didn't tell her I did that. So when we did our first session, she's like, well, that was nice, but that's not what God said I need. And that Sammy needs, her son Sammy needs. So when I sent out that email, she's like, this is it. This is what I need. So when she shared that with me, that was like icing on the cake. I was like, all right, like God knows what he's doing. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, I do, but I'm very still I don't know if I'm nervous anymore, but it's still like new. It's still a challenge and a little scary to tell people that I do this. I don't tell everybody. I mean, now I'm doing
Mm.
podcasts, so more people might know. And I mean, I actually have my own podcast and talk about it. But it's like you just assume people won't listen if they're not interested, which is fine. But I just know there's been way too many God winks or like blessings that have happened from me doing these sessions. And the parents just love knowing what their kids are thinking and feeling, and that these kids love their parents and are so grateful for all the work they're doing. And they're so happy that they can tell them that. So that's
Mhm.
helped propel me forward.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like, I liked how you said there were these little moments along the way that keep propelling you forward. I call those the breadcrumbs of yes. Like it's just like you have to follow that little breadcrumb. You have no idea where the breadcrumbs are going. It's not like it's like you have a map, a destination that you're heading towards, but you do have that little breadcrumb of yes that pulls you forward and helps you to move through those obstacles and those doubts that are present. They're going to be. So tell me about what are some of the doubts or the fears that you've had as you've followed those breadcrumbs of yes?
Um, I'll say that normally when I do a spirit to spirit session, I've at least talked to the parents first. Like that's how I like it to happen, like where they do a 15-minute phone call with me. So I talk to them and really answer their questions. Um, but once this mom just signed up for a session, and so I did it. And the parents can send me questions, like very specific questions. So she like asked this question, like, what does my son think about Molly? And then, some other questions. I was like, okay, so I'm just doing the session. And then I get to that question, like, what do you think about Molly? And suddenly, like, a dog with like golden hair popped into my mind. And then he answered the question. And kids, they all speak very differently, like in my head, like their words. Um, but the way that he answered was so I was like, I really hope and I saw the dog. I saw the golden-haired dog in my mind's eye. It's like he showed me Molly, and I'm answering the question. I'm like, I hope Molly really is a dog. Like these doubts like kind of creep in. I'm like, oh dear, like if Molly's not a dog, I'm going to sound really crazy. But I just was like, all right, this is what I saw. This is what I heard. Kids often sometimes do give me images, along with their words. And I sent it off and I texted the mom. I'm like, well, I hope Molly is a dog. And then she didn't answer for like a day. And like I sent when I send when I do a spirit to spirit session, I don't even try and write to keep up. I just do an audio recording of me asking the questions and then speaking their answers, but then I transcribe it. So I send the audio and the transcription. And usually parents will reply and be like, "Thank you so much," or what? Why do you think he said this or whatever? This mom like nothing, nothing. And I'm like, okay, and I felt so nervous, but just like prayed. I'm like, well, Heavenly Father, I know I did what I said what I heard and saw. Like, so I guess it's in your hands. If Molly's not a dog, that's unfortunate, but like you kind of get these moments of doubt, right? Well, then like 2 days later, she texted back. She's like, yes, Molly's a golden doodle. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. But that was like one very specific time when I had to like sit in my discomfort of not knowing and just knowing I did what I could do. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what are you learning about yourself in this process?
That's a really good question. I think I'm learning to be braver than I ever have before. And I'm learning to trust my gifts in a way that I haven't had to before. I mean, I have other gifts that I know, like I'm a really good energy worker and a good life coach. Like I know that. I've done that for years. But this is so outside of like this is like another level that I haven't done before. And so I haven't really done anything new in my business world in 15 years, right? And now to be asked to do this really outside the box thing, I've just had to have courage to share it and to do it, to be willing to just do a session and ask, how do you feel about Molly? Not know if Molly's a dog or not, right? Like, I don't know. It takes courage. And I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm surprised I can do it, but sometimes I'm surprised I can do it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting that you said that word courage because I just got off a client call with another woman who is coaching and building her business, and of course, our personal life interweaves into all that we're doing in our coaching world. And the one thing that she recognized was that it took courage to show up as herself and to offer the gifts that she felt she had. And one of the things that we recognized is that she was spending so much time and energy focused on everybody who didn't want what she had, that there were people that were literally like saying, please help me. Like she had someone that had been asking for weeks that she coach her, and she was saying, no, I can't, because all of my energy is going over here to all these doubts and the fears and the people that don't want what I have. And so what bridged that gap from shifting from all focusing her attention on everybody who didn't want what she had to focusing on all these people that were just waiting for what she did have was courage. She said it was courage. I had to tap into courage. When I think about standing in that courage, it is the truth. She says, I feel grounded in Christ. I know the truth of who I am, and that gives me the courage to share. So how have you found the courage to share?
Mm. I think that by really staying close to Christ and knowing, like praying, I pray before each session And I know that I'm not doing it for me. Like, I'm not having to be courageous for me. It feels like it, but really, I'm being courageous for this child and their parent. And that gives me courage. These kids are so courageous. I'll share one experience that a little boy shared with me in a spirit to spirit session. It was the beginning of the school year. His mom's like, "Can you do a spirit to spirit session?" Because he just started high school. And like, I don't know, does he like his teachers? Does he like the new school? Like, you just have no idea. If you have a child that cannot speak, you have no idea. And he showed me this beautiful image of being in a hallway, and I don't know if this actually happened to him or if it was just him explaining something to me with this image, but he showed me this image of being in, like, a crowded high school hallway, and some of the kids had, like a heart emoji over their head and, like, loved him. Or I don't know, like, in what he showed me, they're like, "Eh," and they'd say his name, and he's like, "Some people see me and love me, and some people don't see me. That's okay because," and, like, I could see, like, out of, like, the high school or, like, the hallway, there was, like, 3 people with the heart emojis that saw him. And I'm like, think of the courage that takes him to go to school and know that maybe only 3 people actually see him there. And I can have the courage to do these sessions so that he can tell his mom, "I'm okay. Like school, I'm getting used to this new school, and I like this teacher." Like he could tell me very specific things he did like. And that image, I cried when he showed me that image of those kids. And then I thought, what power we have in like having a heart emoji over our head and saying hi to people that are different than us. Like that is power. And I want to be that person that can do that. So that gives me courage, I think, seeing what they do and what I can do just a little bit to help.
Yeah, I love what you said. And the courage comes not from being focused on what my fears are, but on how I can help, what I have to offer that's going to provide an opportunity for a child to speak to his mother, maybe for the first time, or to communicate fears about going to school and to be really seen and heard in a whole new way. It must be just a beautiful experience to be able to be that bridge and that translator for these children communicating for the first time and being heard in a whole new way. So what are some experiences that you've had that are maybe um, just those moments that you want to treasure forever and like this is why I'm doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I think every session feels like that. There are some that are really touching. There's some where I like just cry and I like can't stop crying. I have to edit out like 3 minutes of me sobbing. It's like so beautiful. Um, or sometimes it's sad, right? Like it just really depends. I there's so many. I would just say that so many people assume these kids are not smart because they don't speak. They're taught like they're kindergartners all the way through high school. So many of them. It's like because they can't speak, they assume they are not smart. These kids are so smart. And the things that they share are so lovely and powerful. It's interesting because there do tend to be themes. This one little boy once came to me. He was like disguised as an octopus. He was like dressed up like an octopus. And then he told me some things about octopus, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's really interesting." And then he, like, kinda took his disguise off, and I knew who it was, right? But I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was kinda fun." But he talked about how, like, as a non-speaker, he's like an octopus. Like, people will come to, an aquarium, and they might not even see the octopus because it's hidden away. It might come out, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." But very few will, like, go behind the scenes and, like, reach in and touch the octopus. And octopuses are so smart, like, now I've learned more about them, they're so smart, and they only live for, like, 18 months, it's kind of incredible. Then another child was talking to me about octopuses and was explaining how they're so smart, and he was saying that they, like, share a common knowledge, And when an octopus is born, it like is downloaded all the information it needs from the other octopuses. Like they have their own hill, sort of, right? I don't know. Some of these things are really esoteric, and that's not really me. But he showed me that. I was like, wow, that actually makes sense because octopuses really shouldn't survive. Like they don't have a shell. They live for such a short period of time, but they're able to do amazing things to protect themselves. And I don't know. It's kind of fun to ask them questions and learn from them. And um, yeah, it every session is so different because every session is with a different child with different questions. Some kids I've done multiple sessions on, and that's fun because then I really get to know them and their spirit.
Hmm. So that's fascinating about the octopus because he was teaching you something
Oh
and
yeah.
something that you didn't know before. And now through this spirit to spirit communication, it's like, oh, fascinating. I did not know that. And I would imagine that that was something that was fascinating to him because I'm sure that's very similar to his experience in how he has learned to communicate. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the kids like want certain books read to them or to read them or audiobooks. So they'll show me like an image of a book and then I have to go find it on Amazon. Like, and that's fascinating too. That at least 3 different children have done that. They're like, "Tell my mom I want this book." Oh, and one, it was so sweet. I could see it had a polar bear on the cover, and I went and I found it, and I, like, sent it to the mom. She's like, "Oh, yeah, that's one of his favorite books." And I'm like, "Oh, really sweet," you know? So, I don't know. Just little things like that that reinforce that what I'm doing is right for this population. Like I wouldn't offer this service to kids that can speak. There would be no point, no need for that. But for this very unique, very tiny, I mean, there's actually millions of non-speakers in the world, but subset, I can offer this service to them is powerful.
Yeah. And how do people find you? If they wanted to spirit session, how would people find you?
Yeah, my website is awesomeautismtools.com/spirit would get them to that information. And
Hmm.
yeah, I've got my podcast and a private podcast where I kind of go deeper into the spirit to spirit stuff. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. And I would love to hear for you offering if someone were to come to you, another coach or another woman who just feels like I have this call on my heart. Like I feel like I am meant for more. Maybe I don't even know what it is. Maybe it just feels like I'm meant to bring my gifts into the world, but I'm not sure how to do that. What advice would you give to someone who was just starting on this journey and, or maybe a little bit further down and just maybe questioning her gifts a little bit? What advice would you give?
Yeah. I would say find people around you that can support you in that. That could look like paying for a coach. That could look like, for me, these two sets of parents that those first children that that I've been working with for years, they were so supportive and encouraging to me. Like that was glorious to have them to support me and remind me that I actually already had this gift from years ago and I just hadn't really opened it. Um, but I also have coaches that help me through overcoming my own thoughts about things and being able to step into that more courageous, centered place. So, definitely finding people that can support you on that journey, whether it be a friend you can confide in that you know will support you and encourage you, or yeah, finding a coach for themselves to help overcome those challenges that we need to overcome when we're doing something new.
Yeah, and I think we are in such a unique time right now where we have the ability to bring these gifts into the world. I really love that we are using our divine feminine gifts, but we're creating in a very divine feminine way. Like a masculine creation is very much from a top down. Like I have this idea, I'm going to create this idea, I have a goal, I'm going to go after it. And a divine feminine creation is I have these ideas, I feel these promptings, I feel this intuition, I feel this nudge, and I'm going to move into that. And I see so many women stepping into this new way of sharing their gifts, and we have an infrastructure that is set up to do that. And it's really beautiful to see how different women are showing up in the world and saying, I can't deny this. Like, I've tried to walk away. This is something that has been challenging. I've questioned myself. I've had to have so much courage in order to step out and do this. And it's really beautiful that there is a space where we can bring this part of our heart, these gifts out into the world and really serve deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. I'd say just follow those little nudges and there's no rush. I will say that God was very patient with me along the way. Even when I listened to that first episode of the telepathy tapes, I remember when it was done, I was like, God, I don't know if I want to listen to this because I know it will change my life. And he's like, you don't have to. I was like, okay, good. But like within 2 days, I was listening again, but just it was very slow. I mean, looking back, it wasn't that slow. It was like 3 months, but it was slowly making choices and trying things. Don't be afraid to try things if you feel inspired to try it. What if I had ignored that inspiration to try to go to the hill? Then I would never have realized I had that gift.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that that's such a beautiful way to put it, that sometimes we don't realize the gifts that we have until we are willing to open it. Like, you can't receive a gift that you're not willing to open. You can look at it, it can sit in your lap and it can be there, and you'll be like, oh, that's a really cool gift. Maybe it's for someone else, right? But if we don't open it, we never are able to receive the gift. So I think that that's such a beautiful way of that you recognize that. Like, just try, just receive the gift. And if it's not something for you, then it's not, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
looking back, why were you called to this path? Why you?
Mm, that's a good question. I think possibly because I do have that relationship with those families for many years. Two of the boys I work on every single day, energy work. I do 5 minutes of energy work on them every single day. So I have a deep, abiding love for these families. And it helps me. I know often they say, you coach or you help people because you've been through that experience. I have not been through that experience. I do not have a non speaking child, but I have supported families that do for many, many years. So I have a heart that and an understanding that probably most people don't unless they've lived it. And I think that is a way God was preparing me to finally come to this place where I could step into this. I don't think 11 years ago I could be like, oh, now I'm going to do spirit to spirit sessions. Like, no, that was not in my wheelhouse at the time. But I did what I did know how to do. I knew how to do energy work. So that's what I offered. And that's what I did for many years. Very helpful. And then it came to a point where I was ready to do the next thing. And that's where I'm at now is doing that. And who knows where I'll be 5 years from now? I don't even know.
And that's the following the breadcrumbs of yes, right? It's just taking that next step. And it not, it doesn't have to be energy work or spirit to spirit sessions. It can simply be feeling a call on my heart to show up differently in my life. Whether that different is bringing a business into the world, an idea into the world, as an entrepreneur saying, yes, this sounds like this is a need in the world that needs to be brought, or if it's showing up differently with your child as a mom in your home, or showing up differently in your relationship with yourself, that requires courage. It requires like doing things differently than we've ever done before, and being willing to learn and be taught and be shaped in a way that is different than what we've learned. Because if we were doing it the same way we've always done it, we're going to end up in the same place we've always been. So, all of this that you've talked about today has been such a beautiful example of just learning to step into who you are designed by God to be. And that can be as a mom, it can be as an energy worker, it can be as a coach, it can be as a spirit to spirit session facilitator, right? Like it can be whatever it is, but it does require just being still and being willing to take that next breadcrumb step forward.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have loved having you on, Sheridan. Final question for you. Where have you seen this bless your life?
Mm.
How are you
Well,
different?
yeah, interestingly, previous to this, I didn't really talk to my husband very much about what I did. Um, I don't know if I assumed he wasn't interested or what. We just didn't. And with this experience, God has been very like, he's like, you need to tell your husband what you're doing and you need to talk to him about it. And I'm like, okay. Like, he already thinks what I do is weird. And now this, he's going to think it's like extra weird. Right. And he was out of town. I dropped him off at the airport and listened to the first episode of telepathy tapes. So I kind of opened this gift when he was in Southeast Asia for 3 weeks. So he came home and I'm like, all right, I got something to tell you. And it was funny because I really had no idea how he would respond. But he's like, oh, it's like in Black Panther when he drinks that elixir and goes to the ancestral realm. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how it is, and like, and not that he doesn't think it's weird because he does think it's weird, but I still talk to him about different sessions and different things that I'm doing in a way I've never talked to him about what I do. And so for me, that is what has opened up is a deeper communication with my husband. I don't know if it's just that now I value communication more working with these kids who it's so challenging for them to communicate that I'm like, I'm going to communicate because I can. Or if it's just, I know that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. But that has been actually really fun.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for sharing your story and your gifts and your heart with all of us. It is such a beautiful representation of just showing up and saying, all right, one step at a time. Let's do this one step at a time. And I'm not sure where it's taken me, but I'm willing to learn. So thank you for sharing your story and your heart and the beautiful gifts that you're sharing with those precious families and precious kids. I know you're making a difference. So thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, all. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of Aligned Heart, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.